man? What's happening, man? This your boy, Ogun Bowler, man. Checking in. Make sure you like, subscribe, throw them up the video, share the show, man. No doubt. I definitely want to give a shout out, man. Give a couple shout out, man. To each one, teach one. Big up the truth story, truth the story. Big up Raw Boy. Big up Sunil, man. Make sure you go subscribe to the old fellas channel, man. It's a lot of history on there. It's a lot of good things, man. So, like I say, man, this your boy, Ogun Bowler, checking in from the Black Brown Table. And I definitely want to say, man, like the show, share the show, subscribe, thumb up the video. Yo, what's happening? The Black Brown Taylor checking in. Thank you for coming through. The Black Brown Table checking in. Make sure you invite a friend. The Black Brown Table checking in. Black Brown Table checking in. Make sure that you invite a friend. The Black Brown Table checking in. What's up out there, man? Happy Friday, man. How everybody feeling, man? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling lovely. I just wanted to come in, man. You know, I told y'all I was gonna come back, show another video. Today we viewing Hosea Williams in his own word. For me, man, Hosea Williams is a powerful, powerful man from Savannah, Georgia. Gullah Uman. Gullah, man. Big up to the Gullah Nation. Big up to the whole corridor. He from Savannah. Big up to the 912. Big up to the coast. So, you know, walk with me. I'm going to play part 1. If you know, come learn with me. Feel me? I hope everybody feeling good on this beautiful Friday. I'm so happy the heat that went away, man. The weather done broke. Hey.
The son of Ogun got to talk tonight. The son of Ogun got to talk tonight. Tim, the son of Ogun got to talk tonight. Son of Ogun.
Let's go. Tonight. Grab your popcorn and walk with me now. Here we go. Hold on. This is for education purpose only. This is the Fair Use Act. Don't scratch my channel. This is a copyright disclaimer under the Act 107 of the Copyright Act 1972. This is fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teacher scholarship, and research. This is the Fair Use Only Act. Fair use. Please don't scratch my channel. We are not monetized. Fair use is used to permitted copyright statute that might otherwise be infringed. A non-profit education person using the tips and the balance of favor for fair use. Let's get into it. Great. Hey, we freed ourselves. So I be a slave, I be buried in the mother.
We went to church every Sunday. Hosea Williams, that wife of the 5 children, went to Sunday school every Sunday. I went to choir practice every Wednesday night. All of us could sing for years. But I never met God until I met Martin Luther King Jr.
You heard that?
Black people today
about the video, please.
Are worse off in America than we were 35 years ago. Because not only have we not gained our fair share of Sunday school every Sunday. I went to choir practice.
Listen what he said when he God.
For years. But I never met God until I met Martin Luther King Jr. Black people today are worse off in America than we were 35 years ago. Because not only have we not gained our fair share of America's economy,
man, hit the cash out,
we have
man.
lost control of the economics of our community.
Please donate.
I'm going to do
you want to.
what I believe is right and godly, irregardless what they say about me. after I came out of the army
Nations, gifts.
and went back to Attapulgis, Georgia, I faced some horrible racial attacks. And I had made a deal with my grandfather before I went in the army. I was a hustler, and that I would send the money back to him that I hustled. And when I returned, we would divide it 50-50. But after I ran into these racial attacks down there, he told me one day, I want you to leave. You can take all the money. I just want you to leave because they're going to kill you if you stay here. And I start thinking, where would I go? To Jacksonville, to Miami, to Savannah, Birmingham. And I finally agreed that I'd heard so much talk about Atlanta. I'd even heard things like there are two places in Georgia. You have Atlanta, and then you have Georgia. So I came to Atlanta, and to tell you the truth, it was truly amazing to me. I'd never visualized the black prosperity, black success, the black ownership. I just couldn't hardly believe it. Unquestionably, I believe that Auburn Avenue was the black Mecca of the nation. Auburn Avenue was not only the black economic Mecca of the nation, Auburn Avenue was the black social Mecca of the nation. You had Hunter Street and Atlanta University, but it was just amazing to me. I didn't know white folk live at this level. Many of the things they had on Auburn, they had two of the finest nightclubs in America. That's where I met Ray Charles and many other entertainers. I mean, in these places they were unquestionably high class. Everybody dressed to the T. Everybody acted intelligent. You know, no whole lot of vulgar, no whole lot of violence, and I just couldn't hardly believe it. I can remember they used to have Bladen Business School out and all these pretty women, young women going to school. And I used to get sharp as a tack, dressed down, and just to stand on the corner. That's the truth. Stand on the corner. I was not the only one just to see these beautiful people pass by. I couldn't believe Yates and Milton, which was the largest black drugstore chain in America, Yates and Milton. But they had on Auburn Avenue, had two banks, and Citizen Trust, I was told, was the richest bank in America at that time, richest black bank. Then they had one of the richest companies in America, black-owned companies, which was Atlanta Light. They had two hell of a steakhouses. It was I couldn't believe it. I don't believe there was no place in the world that blacks was as prosperous. I used to talk about how fine Atlanta, Georgia was at that time. And you had Peachtree Street, which the white people owned and operated, but you had Auburn Avenue. And I think Auburn Avenue was as much responsible for the progress of Atlanta as Peachtree Street. This is probably the only city that I'd ever known, and even today, that one of the reasons for the black progress, blacks did not have to go to white people for nothing, because the big money was being made at Atlanta Light, but deposit basically in Citizen Trust, and that's where all these black people are getting this money to buy these homes and put up these businesses. But it was just, I never heard talk of a black radio station till I came. Black radio station owned and operated, and it was just, but Atlanta was just so fine. And at that time, there was unquestionable difference said you had Auburn Avenue and a few blocks south of Auburn Avenue. That's where you found the thugs, the pimps, you know. That was over in Decatur Street. Of course, you had just north of it, had Buttermilk Bottom, which wasn't so bad. It was a residential area, but Auburn, I mean, it was just, I don't know any place that you could go in the world that was as peaceful and people was as educated and intelligent and happy, particularly blacks, at Auburn Avenue.
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
When I went into the Army, I had only, I left the 7th grade. I had not graduated, I had not even finished the 7th grade. But I learned in the Army, when I went to the Army, I was small framed, but I was an authentic gangster, an authentic street thug, robber, pimp. But when I went to the Army, that's where I learned, and that's where I found confidence and faith in myself. And I remember one time that I was a staff sergeant at the age of 19. And I remember some few months after that, the assistant company commander was transferred, and I just wasn't no question about who would get the position. Hosea Williams would get the position. And when they appointed another young guy, and I went to the company commander, we was quite friendly, and I said, please tell me what happened, why you didn't appoint me. And he said, Jose, that guy has 2 years in college, and you know, you didn't even finish high school. He went explaining things to me. Those are the kind of experiences that brought me around to realizing that how bad I needed an education. So when I went back to Bainbridge, I went to the high school, and I tried to register the senior class, and they said, no, you can't do that. And I went and met with the, I was about 22 years old, and I went and met with the principal, Mrs. Hutto. It was Hutto High. And we had a long conversation. I convinced her. And she said, I'm gonna give you a chance. You've impressed me. And I went on and graduated from Hutto High. And I had a friend, a close friend of mine. He was a student at Morehouse. He was a junior. And he just felt like I would have no problem. And that Morehouse would welcome me. And so we came to Morehouse, and they, after checking my records, they said that they couldn't accept me, that I didn't have the academic background, and they just couldn't accept me. Well, my friend was upset, and he said, don't worry. He'd been dating the secretary, one of the president's, Clark's secretary. And he said, I know I can get you. She's very influential with him. We went to Clark, and I applied for Clark. And Clark gave me the same answer Morehouse gave me, that, sorry, but we cannot accept you. You just don't have the academic background. And we always hurt, and he thought about his father and called his father back in Bainbridge. And his father happened to be very friendly with the AME preacher. And the AME preacher out in Bainbridge was a very close friend of Bishop Fountain. At that time, Fountain was the AME bishop, and his son was the president of Morris Brown. And so Bishop Fountain requested his son to talk to me. And I went in and talked to President Fountain, president of the college. And when the conversation was ended, he said, you know what, you've impressed me. I'm going to violate the rules and regulations of this institution. I am going to let you enter. But I want you to remember one thing. If you make one mistake, you'll be out and you never can return. And that's how I really got into college.
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
Well, when I first finished college, I got a job teaching down at Conyers, Georgia. I'd married this beautiful lady, and teaching I didn't have the the courses in college that would make me automatically a professional teacher. So I'd have to teach so many years to acquire the normal salary. And I got a job at the post office. So I was working in the daytime at teaching school, and at night I was working at U.S. Post Office. And I heard of the government back in those days. They hire individuals now based upon their academic achievements. But back in those days, you had to take an exam. And it was really a miracle. I know I'd been out partying all night and drinking and partying. And I went in the next morning to take the exam. And I guess it might have been the results of my lucrativeness. But I was just shocked because you had some sharp guys in there from all of the colleges around. Some who was teaching at the colleges here. And I made 95 on the exam. Well, by being a disabled veteran, that gave me 105. So I got the job. They first sent me to Washington, and after weeks of orientation, they transferred me back to Savannah, Georgia. And that was the headquarters for the Chemical Division of the United States Department of Agriculture. And the head of the chemistry lab carried me around in the lab, and it was really shocking to me. And I've tried to give information back to the Atlanta University system, because when that man carried me through that lab and showed me those instruments, when we finished, he said, what, you seem so unhappy. You have a problem? I said, yes, I do have a problem, sir. Because all those instruments that you showed me, I have never operated a single one.
Talk to Jose.
They, you know, at
Peace,
Georgia
Chuck.
Tech and other places then, were not only teaching kids how to operate those instruments, they could break them down and put them back together. And I was just totally devastated. He was a Cuban, Cipriano Cueto. And Cipri said to me, he said, young man, if you want the job and you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach you. And he was a chemical nut. And I guess for the next 2 or 3 years, the majority of the nights, we stayed in that chemistry lab till 10 or 11 o'clock.
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
Even though I was the most productive chemist in that lab, and I'm not talking about just running analyses, but I'm talking about in the area of research also. I really was, it was like being in heaven to me, because the whites accepted me as the only black professional. And they had entomologists and, you know, biologists, just a whole lot of scientists and professionals, and they accepted me. And I was the first black to be able to eat at a hotel in Savannah. The American Chemical Society met there, because we used to go to meetings out at the hotels, and when it come time to eat, they'd have a room to put blacks in, and all the white people stay out in the dining room. And I used to go to these guys' home, these white guys' homes, and party with them, dance with their wives, and drink with them. And they used to tell me, like, Hosea, black people don't have to be down. You are not down because you studied hard and you work hard. And if other blacks were like you, they would have to be down. And I really believe that. It really got me believing I was better than the vast majority of black folks. And Savannah, Georgia had something that I've not witnessed in other cities, a true upper class black population, that we didn't go to nightclubs that was below our dignity. We partied in our house, and we spent a lot of time in Trinidad, the areas as of such. But I started thinking, and I found out one thing. When a job was available, see, at the employment office downtown, the white employment office was on the first floor and the black employment office on the second floor. And whenever they had vacancies, it didn't go any further than the white employment office. And so I started telling, I had one guy who had helped me out so much in area chemistry, working at Savannah State. And he went out there and he even applied. And they never would hire another black. And then I began to truly feel I was what they called under slavery, a house nigger. That we have Hosea Williams here as a scientist, the first black scientist hired by the federal government south of D.C. And that really, it tore me apart. Now, all of the persons in that lab never turned against me, but many of them did turn against me. My job became from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the sea. And I really, things became very difficult for me at that time, but I continued. And I had become very, things that happened in Savannah, and I got very involved with the NAACP, W.W. Law, who was considered one of the top NAACP people in the Southland. W.W. Law, we had gotten to be like the civil rights twins. And I could see it, that not another black professional out here. They don't intend to hire another black professional. And they're using me. When a black come out and they turn him down and say, y'all are prejudiced, y'all are racist. No, we not. We have Hosea Williams. And it's my intent to see that some more blacks was hired. And I got very involved in the NAACP. And more it was brought to my attention, and I was aware of the professional racism that I was being subjected to. And I remember becoming very conscious of the civil rights organizations, because I really then, my interest in science began dwindling, and my interest in civil rights grew more and more. And I noticed that all of the civil rights organizations, their office was in New York, and their leaders was in New York. I had Roy Wilkins of the NAACP and Whitney Young of the Urban League and on and on. But they were in New York, and I became so vibrant, so successful as one of the NAACP leaders in the South. I was a member of the Savannah, Georgia branch, one of the most active chapters in the South. And I was a member of, I was vice president of Georgia, which is one of the most active states in the South. And I was also a member of the NAACPs and regions. But one thing I noticed, all those leaders of all those other civil rights organizations, including NAACP, lived in New York. And they'd send us memorandums through the mail telling us how to get free. Send us memorandums telling us how to fight the Ku Klux Klan. And one day I was watching television, and this is about 1955, and I saw this young man in Montgomery, Alabama, and he told the people, y'all get behind me, and I'm going to lead you and show you how to get free. And I said, my God, I got to go see this man. So I jumped in the car, and a couple of kids, I was head of the youth council in Savannah, and we drove to Montgomery, and that's where I tell everybody that Hosea Williams and that wife and those 5 children, we went to church every Sunday. Hosea Williams, that wife, and his 5 children went to Sunday school every Sunday. I went to choir practice every Wednesday night. All of us could sing.
That wife.
For years.
That wife.
But I never met God till I met Martin Luther King Jr. And King was not my God, but the true God revealed himself to me through King.
Woo.
And that's when I knew I had to give up. Oh, I was living, oh man, it was, I had the second largest house of any black family in Savannah, and my wife, the largest house of any, and that's when I knew I had to give up. Oh, I was living, oh, Junior. And King was not my God. Every Wednesday night, all of us could sing for years, but I never met God till I met Martin Luther King Jr. And King was not my God, but the true God revealed himself to me through King. And that's when I knew I had to give up. Oh, I was living, oh man, it was, I had the second largest house of any black family in Savannah, and my wife wore furs and diamond rings, and we lived on the street. College president and a few doctors and lawyers and college professors. That's the only thing that lived on the street that I lived on, Gilbert Street. And it was kind of a pitiful thing because I had been soaked up in the upper class society. I was so popular in Savannah till I bought the first Cadillac came to town every year. The very few railroads in Savannah. So these things are brought in Savannah on trucks. Very few railroads in Savannah. And they'd bring the truck in, and all the press would be there, and all the big shots, black and white. At first Cadillac that came off that truck, that belonged to Hosea Williams. And I just, I'd been eaten up by the American society, looking for what I already had, you know. And when I went into civil rights, I gave it all up. It was very difficult for my wife and to some extent to my children. But when I found Martin Luther King Jr., I gave it all up.
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
I ended up getting kicked out of the NAACP because of my militancy. And I went to Dr. King and asked him, could I work with SCLC? And he said, we'd be glad to have you. And I started working with SCLC. So I went back to Savannah and organized a SCLC chapter. And we became, after Birmingham, Savannah, Georgia became the #1 civil rights movement in America. And that we really battled there. They kept me, that picture up there, they kept me in jail 35 days on bread and water. That's when my wife came to get me out of jail. My bond had gone up to $150,000. And they had the bonds $2,500 each. And if you had a piece of land worth $1 million and you bond me out on one bond, they wouldn't let you put anything else on that property. So we won that battle in Savannah, Georgia. We had pleas from Mills B. Lane, who was the president of the C&S Bank. We had pleas from President Kennedy at that time. And I remember when we settled the movement in Savannah, they gave us every demand. They made every demand except two. They said we were going to not integrate the bars until after New Year's night. And that's a big time in Savannah. And we won't integrate the swimming pools until the season, you know, the next spring season. Well, the swimming pools was closed anyway. And at that time, Dr. King called the SCLC convention in Savannah and announced, to my amazement, that Savannah, Georgia, this is after Birmingham, that Savannah, Georgia was the most integrated city south of the Mason-Dixon line. And so I really began to try to leave the chemistry lab and ended up as a full-time staff member on Dr. King's team.
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
That's what was driving them crazy down there. We'd have this big rally, and then we'd get out and we'd march every night. We'd march every night. And I was operating under the name of SCLC's Voters League. And I was really trying to get Dr. King into Savannah. And every one of the officials from SCLC, from Abernathy on down, did come to Savannah. It was the first time Andy Young had been arrested in the civil rights movement, as long as he'd been there. But Dr. King never did come to Savannah. I would come to Atlanta and we'd have conferences and I would talk to him over the phone. He promised me he'd come, but for some reason, he never came to Savannah until the movement was over. And then he called his annual convention in Savannah. I remember he gave me the award of the year. And that's where we really began to associate. I don't know why Dr. King is one of the things I never found out, why he never came to the movement in Savannah. And this was right after Birmingham. And I don't know whether it was the threats on his life or what, but he never did come to Savannah. It was kind of embarrassing because Savannah turned out to be the #1 victory in the civil rights movement up until that time. And he admitted this. This is the most integrated city south of the Mason-Dixon line, and no one is more responsible for it than Hosea Williams. So I never did really just come out and ask him, Doc, why you never came to Savannah?
Baby, you're breaking every rule I have.
When I came to SCLC, I was so angry. I was so impatient until I would start moving every place they sent me. And I've always believed they sent me to St. Augustine, in a town where the movement was dying, believing I could not revive it. St. Augustine, Florida. It was a dentist there, and he had, I remember the first night I spoke there, they had about, they brought me from the little black motel down to the church, and I looked ahead, I mean, really, it must have been 40 guys with guns around the church while we have the beating inside. My God, what am I facing now? But I did settle down and convince them to get rid of all those guns and abandon violence, and let's take up Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence. And then the movement grew so large, and it became such a national news media factor. And I think Dr. King really was kind of forced to come to St. Augustine. But as the things worked out, we've always said that Birmingham, Alabama, the movement in Birmingham, Alabama, produced the Civil Rights Bill, but it got bogged down in Congress. And it was St. Augustine, Florida, that pushed it on through. We would go out to the Atlantic Ocean, and that was really tragic for me, because I don't know how to swim. And we'd go out to the beach, and then they'd have just a line, the sheriff worked on the head of the Ku Klux Klan, was called Hosea Williams, and they'd just be lined up, 50, 75 Ku Klux Klans with sticks, with bats. And they'd wait till we get out in that water. We'd go out there, maybe, it's beautiful beaches down there. Maybe we'd go out in that water, say 40 or 50 feet out in the water, which was about almost waist deep. And they'd come out there and beat us down in the water. And then the sheriff would announce everyone was under arrest. He'd take all his deputies, and they'd take us all to jail. We who was in there demonstrating, it was $50 to get us out of jail. The whites that beat us up, the Ku Klux Klan, it was $2.50 to get them out of jail. And finally, it became such a national issue until Dr. King did come to town. And they would beat us out in that water. And then we would march at lunch hour down to the lunch counters, and they would beat us again. The worst beating we would get at night, we would march down, they have a slave market, that downtown in the middle of St. Augustine, Florida, and we would march this slave market just to pray, just to have prayer. That was the worst beating we took of all. So one night we were planning, that's Dr. King came to town and was in this little motel, and it was a white lady from New York. She had this beautiful beach home, and she heard Dr. King was in town, and she came by the motel and gave Dr. King the keys. She was leaving town, that he could live in her home until the movement is over. And we met so late in this motel, Dr. King decided to go out there in the morning. Those Klansmen shot that house to pieces. Anyone in that house would have been killed that night. And so Dr. King stayed, kind of out in the black community. But that was a very violent movement. And I remember how when the settlement came, so much pressure was put on Dr. King to end that movement. And he said, I could never end it until these demands are met. But those demands was the kind of demands pressuring the United States Congress to pass the Civil Rights Bill. And Dr. King was pressured by the president to call for some type of halt on the movement. So we all went to Jacksonville, Florida, which was only about 50 miles, 60, 70 miles from St. Augustine. And we checked at the motel there, and we got discussing what can we do. And Dr. King called the head of the sheriff. He tried to speak to the sheriff back in St. Augustine, Florida. And he went in and talked to Dr. King. And Dr. King sent Andy. And Andy went down to try to talk to the authorities to get to the head of the clans down there. And we were surprised. We turned the television on by 6 o'clock that evening. And Andy had conned them to say that they would not beat us anymore, but we agreed not to march anymore, and we'd come to the table to discuss the demands, and that ended the movement.
Well, that was part one. That was part one, man. Thank y'all for checking out part one with me. Like I said, it's a 2-part series of the Honorable Hosea Williams, man. If you know, you know. Savannah finest, man. He was a rebel. Even till he died, he was a motherfucking resistance fighter. And he fought the way he fought. Things he did, black people in the state of Atlanta, he never motherfucking sold us out. Unbought and unbossed. That was his motto. Coming back with part 2 tomorrow. If you haven't, make sure you check this out on the replay, part 1, so you can be ready for part 2 tomorrow, man. As I always say, man, thank you for tuning in. You ain't got to share the show. Just please storm up the show so we can get this shit popping. And thank y'all for always showing love. Thank you for everybody that came through. And enjoy your Friday, man. Because I'm down so about to. Hope everybody have a motherfucking safe night. And a productive night. Thank y'all.